When the servers go down, we'll tell you what's up. You're listening to Realm Maintenance.
Today, I am joined by someone who has been on this show before, an artist who not only shines a light on tide stages of Kultiras, but also uses her reach to lift up other artists. Most recently, she's been hanging out in Dornagal, bullying lamplighters by desecrating their sacred flame, but more importantly, she's just been part of shipping the latest edition of the Warcraft comic anthology Interlude, this time called Stories of Azeroth in Harmony. MeggoArt, it's a pleasure to have you. How are you doing?
Much. I'm doing great. I'm so excited you're up on all my silly RP posting that I've been doing on Blue Sky. Well, yeah, I know we got some great group of friends, and we love to get into those Moonguard shenanigans, wholesome Moonguard shenanigans, I should add.
Oh, for sure. Are
Yeah,
there's other shenanigans on Moonguard that isn't wholesome?
no comment, no comment.
Well, for those who might not know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
I am a Warcraft community artist. I do a lot of illustration, character, specific illustration. People commission me to draw their characters, which is always fun. But I also have a background in comics. So I have a graphic novel that I worked on in the past called Innsmouth, which, after COVID and the pandemic, I've kind of shifted away from, doing the comic convention circuit and more into just doing WoW art because that's what makes me happy. And it's also great to kind of bring comics to the WoW community because comics have always been a part of the Warcraft community. I don't know if anyone remembers, back in the day when they, back in vanilla when they used to have the old Warcraft website and they would do community comic features. I was like, 9, 10 years old and very excited to read all of those. So I think there's like a legacy of Warcraft comics, community comics that I kind of want to touch back on with this interlude project,
Yeah,
which I
I remember getting the Legends comics.
Yeah, those 2 that the official published ones are also very
Yeah,
exciting.
and I mean it's both like you say, like unofficially and officially, comics
Mhm.
have always been part of the Warcraft storytelling,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's so great that this has not just been a one-time thing. Interlude has been going for 3 years now. This is the third edition,
It is, yeah.
um, which is very exciting,
Mhm.
and we'll dive more into Interlude and all that's going on. But before that, I just want to kind of chat, and I want to know how you been in WoW. You were on here last year, a year ago,
Yes.
um, talking about the second edition of Interlude,
Mhm.
and since then, War Within has launched.
Yeah.
How has it been? What are your thoughts on the expansion?
It is so exciting. I have to mention that I'm a Shadow Priest main, so anything with Xalatath is like A plus in my book. So excited to see her. Devastated to think that like in future patches we're gonna have to go up against her and maybe take her.
No,
It's gonna be so sad. But
it's not
while
happening.
she's alive and living her best life, I've just fangirling every time she's on screen. Yeah. So I mean, Dragonflight was such a breath of fresh air after Shadowlands, and I was very glad to get back into a setting that felt like Azeroth, but it was also kind of a little bit too cozy, comfy for me. I was kind of keeping track of the story, but also didn't seem that important to you know pay attention to every single uh, plot point that passed us along. But now that War Within is here, like I'm locked in. Like I love this. This is a little bit higher stakes, a little bit exciting to see, new things on Azeroth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously, and I think, I mean, I assume you're into the lore of WoW, and
Mhm.
I know you love to explore the more day to day life kinds of things, I suppose. And I feel like we got a lot of that in War Within,
Mhm.
especially in Isle of Dorn. A lot of side quests. It's just kind of them living life.
Mhm. Yeah, that's always great to see too, the it's great to go on big adventures with your heroes, but also kind of the the daily, slice of life stuff is also great. And that's a lot of what, talking about Interlude again, that's also, our big focus is, how do the heroes of Azeroth live day to day.
Exactly.
Mhm,
I b- Before we jump into Interlude, because I feel like we have to talk about it. We just have to do it.
mhm.
I before that, I need to know, are you excited about 11.1, and will there be Gobo art from MeggoArt?
Definitely. I mean, I think there was already some goblin stuff that I was drawing recently. Again, because Interlude has absorbed my life. There's like a little guy with a saxophone and a jukebox, so that feels very fitting now that we have the music for 11.1. So
Yes.
I know our guild, Prismatic, is excited to jump in, and it's gonna be. I haven't like tested any of the stuff on the PTR yet because I don't like gameplay spoilers. But I'm super excited to try out the drive system. It looks like it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah. The more I see of it, it just feels so out of place, but so good. Like in a good way. I don't know how to describe it. Like it doesn't feel like anything we've had in WoW before, which I think is a really good thing.
Definitely, definitely. And
So
it's always great when WoW, like, I feel like they kind of steal bits and pieces of other games. Like, this is not news. This is not new. But the fact that I've never actually played GTA, but I'm gonna get to experience a little bit of that just through WoW, which I'm already playing, is great. Like, I feel like I'm cheating in all these games that I haven't actually played, but like I get the WoW version, so I get the gist of it.
yeah, I mean, it used to be Flappy Bird in Shadowlands with the World Quest, you know,
Mhm.
and Bejeweled. Played a lot of Bejeweled back in the day on
The
Flight
Pokemon
Paths. So
stuff.
exactly, exactly. Who needs other games? Who needs
Mhm.
other games?
Yeah,
Okay,
housing, like, oh my god,
huge. I
huge.
could talk about that for hours.
I seriously could. And like I'm kind of sad that they didn't announce housing at BlizzCon because everyone would have seen me just like burst into tears. It was like instant. Like Ian was like, "Oh, he said his little line about housing, and it was just like crying." Like I wanted it so badly, but I also didn't think it would ever happen. So
Yeah, I at this point I was kind of doubting it,
mhm,
but it seems like they're really leaning into it.
mhm.
Slow trickle, but I guess that's better if it's quality trickle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hope it is
Yeah,
as robust and as ongoing as the transmog system, which is what it sounds like it will be. So.
exactly, exactly. Okay, let's talk Interlude. This has been going for a few years now. Give us a brief description of Interlude as a whole before we dive into Harmony.
Sure. So this is a project that started when they announced there was going to be a time skip in the story. This was between Shadowlands and Dragonflight, and as soon as I heard that, all of the role players who I'm in community with were immediately freaking out, like, "Oh my God, we have to come up with 5 years or 3 years, depending on how you wanted to count it, of story for our characters. Like, how do we communicate that to people? When exactly do we like say, oh, this is exactly when the time skip happened? Like." What have I been doing with my character during this time? So I had the idea of, okay, so what if we made like a showcase where everyone could indeed show what their character had been doing during that time, which is why the anthology got the name Interlude. Because that refers to kind of the period between parts of the story. And we wanted it to feel kind of slice of life. We wanted to feel kind of casual because, again, the whole idea between Shadowlands and Dragonflight was like everyone got a chance to rest for a second. Like there was finally some years where there weren't any wars on Azeroth. Like everyone got a minute to chill, which was really exciting for like role players because you know you can be doing big advanced adventure stories with your characters, but most often you're just like hanging out in Stormwind with your friends. So kind of having a place to tell those stories was exciting. So I defaulted immediately, okay, so we're gonna tell this through the medium of comics because that's just my background. And I know that people always want an excuse to kind of tell their own stories, and they kind of need a platform for it. So I was happy to make it happen.
Yeah, and this is kind of jumping ahead. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but uh, uh, it's a big collaboration, right?
Mhm.
I think this latest one is 19 comics from 20 collaborators
Yeah,
or
yeah,
20 contributors, I suppose.
yeah.
How did you get started with that? Like, I know the art community is huge and you're pretty close knit, but it's still a big undertaking. I know you haven't done this alone.
Yeah, yeah, no, I luckily have a team of some great editors that help me put it together, which is great because I definitely could not be, organizing all those people just by myself. But yeah, ultimately, when we start the process, and this is something we've gone through a couple of times, we put out a call for artists, and the goal is to have as many people that want to contribute be able to contribute. So we're not weeding people out, we're not making people apply. If you want to be an interlude and you can make it to the end of the process, which is not necessarily an easy thing. I think people have found that comics are a lot more work than they might expect. But if you can make it to the end and hand me a comic at the end, okay, it's going in the book, it's going to get printed, it's going to be put up online. So ultimately it's kind of me setting up all the parameters, making sure everyone has the correct size files, and then me saying, go make something. I hope it's something you can get to the end of without burning yourself out.
A lot of project management, sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, but also, luckily, as far as just kind of setting up the beginning parts, then I've kind of put my trust in the community that there will be, things at the end for me to look at when it's ready, when the deadline hits, and I'm also working on mine as well. So, I'm trying to inspire people to, get your sketches done early, get your flats done early, so you're not up against that final deadline.
Yeah, for sure. So, we'll talk more about your story in a little bit,
Yeah.
but th- first there was stories of rest.
Yeah. I actually have them
Then
right here, and since we're
yes,
on camera, I can, like, hold them up, like
if you're listening to this on audio, you should definitely just pull up your phone and check the video right now because they're printed. So we have stories of Azeroth in rest,
Yes, at rest. So that was the first one, which was just about the time skip specifically.
and
Um,
yeah,
and it's got, like, this funny little Draenei on the cover, he's chilling and fishing, and, Nightborn who's painting, and Goblin here looking at bugs, like, they're doing all their hobbies. Good for them, not fighting. Not that there's anything wrong with, more action-oriented stories, but, also want to make space for other stuff.
yeah, and then you got feasting. Let's see it.
Yes, Feasting was right here. This was the one that came out during kind of the middle of Dragonflight. And we picked the feasting theme just because it kind of fit the vibe of the expansion, with the community stew, community feast that
Yeah.
they would do in game, and with the Tuskar like that. It just felt right and proper. And also, I just had a really big desire to do a food focused book because I wanted to draw a bunch of yummy looking food. And I think other people also got on that kind of vibe, 'cause that kind of Ghibli aesthetic of, like, let's just really render, a bowl of soup for like 2 hours and see how cool it can look at the end.
I'm sure that's a very different challenge as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely its own genre, and I respect people who are like amazing food illustrators. Like, that was just me dabbling in it.
And so now we have the third, not
Yeah,
edition, third.
this one is Harmony.
Yeah.
So
So
the idea was because we were thinking at the beginning of the process, so what kind of is a theme we can jump off of from War Within, because we wanted each of these to be, like, at least tangentially related to the expansion itself. And someone had the great idea of, the Radiant song is kind of a music idea, and so we can expand that into a wider theme of, not just music, but also, harmony is a great word because it can be people who are working together, or, like, in sync with each other. So some of our stories are a little bit more metaphorical like that, and not quite so literal, but I think it all works together to kind of make a lovely, anthology.
yeah, and I
And I
think
should mention this cover here, painted by the lovely Cock Krieg, who is an artist who mostly does Forsaken stuff, and I love their work so much. I was excited to be able to ask them to do a cover, and they also have a comic in here about Forsaken stuff. So um, that was I think a couple of people clued into the idea of, like, okay, if we're doing a music comic with Forsaken, we need to have, like, Blightbore in there, like heavy metal stuff. So exciting. I
100%.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Feasting cover was done by Art Lily, who runs the String of Thorn Beach Bash, if anyone's familiar with that. So yeah, great community folks working on this.
Seriously. And it is fun because reading through the anthology, some of it is very closely tied to music. Like you said,
Mhm,
there's a festival. There's some that talk about, they're around a campfire. They're singing, and some
mhm,
are much more loosely just kind of tied around harmony,
mm,
right?
mhm,
And it is really cool seeing different artists take on that,
mhm,
and it really is a wide spectrum of experiences and thoughts and ideas, and you can tell that people put so much of their love into these comics, into these
mhm.
projects,
That's my favorite
and
thing about this. Like, people really, it's a big project. 4 pages of comic is nothing to sneeze at, especially if you're not used to making comics. But people really embrace it, and they put 110% of their effort into it, and what they get at the end, I think, is really special, and they're very proud of it, which is makes me happy because everyone's having a good time.
yeah, and there's all sorts of art styles and experience levels, and
Mhm,
just like you said earlier, anyone who wants to and is able to complete a comic gets published,
mhm,
which in itself is a huge feat. I
mhm,
I don't think I could do it. uh, so I'm always super impressed when these come out. They are available to read right now. We haven't actually said these. All um, these three anthologies are right now available online. If you go to Blue Sky and search for Interlude, I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. Unless you have an easier way to find it, Mego. There's a website, of course. I don't know if
There
you.
is a card site. I think it is Interlude Comic. I should know this. Interludecomicanthology.card.co. But if that's too much to type in, you can also find it on Blue Sky.
And we will have the link in the description below. But also,
Mhm,
if you Google Interlude WoW comic, it's the first thing that pop up. You can read all three anthologies right now, this second. And like we've alluded to, and Mego's been showing, the
they're
physical.
also free online. The digital versions are all
Yes,
free online, no paywall, nothing that you need to do to access them. Just on the site there, you can just flip through them right there. So the printed version that I'm holding, that does cost a little bit of money just to ship it to people and print it. But I try to make sure that it's as cheap as I possibly can. This is an at cost project, so I'm not making any profit off of this. Mostly because I don't want to deal with the headache of trying to divide profits, 20 ways through 20 people.
yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah. So, and though the link to if you want to purchase these printed copies, you can also find that on that website or through Mego's shop. It's also sold through your shop,
mhm.
which hint hint, you can buy other stuff there too, which is pretty amazing. Um, let me see. I'm sure I have. I'm not
Lots
gonna
of
go
stickers.
rooting through. I have some of your stickers here. I'm not gonna. I don't think I can find them right now.
Oh, that's okay.
But they're under here.
Mhm,
Uh, Go check them out. There's obviously right now you're pushing the harmony, but there's also some limited supply of feasting. Last
mhm.
time I checked, I didn't see any left of rest.
Yeah, yeah. The first one did sell out. So I have the last 2 copies right here, which are just mine. But yeah, we have a good number of feastings left, so that's great. And if there's a huge demand to rerun the first go, I could do it if I hear from people that that's what they want. So reach out if you want to do
Get in the
it.
comments.
Mhm.
But yeah, that link will also be in the description below to both read and if you want to buy, it's available there.
They're
Um,
very nice to have on a shelf now that there's multiple of them to like see the spines next to each other on my bookshelf.
yeah,
It feels like, oh, look at how many comics we've made.
it's so exciting when you get to see something that you and other people have worked so hard for, and you get to see the physical manifestation.
Yeah, yeah, I always love to hear from the artists after they've received their copies. And they're very excited to say like, oh, I worked so hard on this, and here it is, I can physically hold it, which is like, oh, yeah, because I also have a background in doing comics, like physical print comics. So that's my favorite thing is to like if I'm working on something, I want to be able to hold it at the end. It's just a little bit better, more tactile, and also you have it forever at that point. If it's a project you've worked really hard on, it's great to being able to physically put it in your room.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned this already that you put out calls for artists. I guess I kind of want to dive into more of that. Both I want to hear. Let's start with just your process of actually like finding those artists and communicating with them. What is
Mhm.
that process like? Is it as easy as saying come and apply and then guiding them through that?
Mhm. Well, luckily, there's some word of mouth that's been spun up about this project now. So we have some artists that are like bringing their friends in, or people have watched them go through this process who want to get involved now that they've seen like, okay, this is a legit thing, and people are having some success with it. So that part is new, that I'm seeing. People are coming into our Discord kind of on the off season, which I would count right now as like the off season because we're not actively working on an issue right now. But people are joining, thinking, oh, I'll contribute next time. So that's exciting to see if they, are still interested. It's usually about like September ish, because I'm running on like the same schedule every year. But yeah, other than that, I kind of just it takes a little bit to kind of get the project across over social media when you only have a little bit of text you can fit in a tweet or in a post, to kind of say, this is the process. Everyone is invited. Everyone will get a comic at the end, if you finish. So yeah.
I mean, that's a huge reward in itself, I would
Mm,
say.
yeah.
uh, so if someone's listening to this and thinking that sounds interesting, I want to get involved or just learn more. What's the easiest way? You mentioned the Discord. How do people find this? How do people get involved?
Yeah, there are links to the Discord, which I mostly blast out kind of in the promo season, which, like I said, in the fall, that's when I kind of put that out there. But otherwise, if you want to get in early, you can message me. You can send me a message. There's also we have a specific Interlude Blue Sky account, so if you DM there, I can get you links in. Obviously, I don't want to have it be too public, just for the sake of like not letting spammers in. So. Kind of have to balance that, ease of access versus making sure that people who are entering are actually, Warcraft community, interested folks and not like randoms.
100%. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your story in Harmony.
Yeah.
Lord Admiral's Understudy.
Mhm.
It's portraying a play. So tell me why a play? There's a little bit of music in there, but definitely more focus on the play
Mhm.
and what inspired this interpretation of harmony.
Yes. So, this actually goes back to when we were doing Miss Pandaria time running. We had to make new characters, so I, made two new characters for that. And as I was playing through, time running, I was like, oh, actually, I really like these guys. One of which was my Kultiran. In game, she's a shaman, but in the lore of it, I say that she's a bard. So she's kind of the main character in the comic. And I really love. They added the blue hair color for the Kultirans. And as soon as I saw that come, I was like, okay, so I've got to have like a Kultiran shaman with this hair color because that's just like, I think it's, there's not a ton of customization for Kultirans, and I'm a Kultira stan, so getting something new is very exciting. And as soon as I saw that, I had a character, idea in mind. So I had the idea that maybe she's a bard, maybe she's a player in like an actor troupe. And then from there, it's easy to imagine, okay, so who else is in the actor troupe? So one of which is the other character I made for time running, who is a warlock. And he is kind of like he doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. So throughout the comic, we gotta fix it. So the idea was, okay, so if we have an acting troupe in Kultiris, what play could they be putting on? And I had it just be some generic, like, oh, it's some story about some Lord Admiral from centuries ago, perhaps. It's just kind of there as a character, or as a story vessel to kind of make everything happen. So the idea is that, well, one of the actors gets hurt and we need an understudy. We need someone to fill in, and Cassie's kind of running around like, okay, so who can fill in for, the guy that fell over and broke his leg? And she's like, okay, so my cousin Marcus, who is not actually an actor, but I'll make him do it. And kind of like force him to play the role. So that's kind of the idea of having, a cast of characters, a new cast, because it's not the usual ones that I had been doing comics with in the previous two interludes. It was fun to kind of bring in some new faces of my own characters and kind of make them, resolve a situation.
That's awesome. I love seeing, like I mentioned earlier, just how many different takes on harmony there is. There's some, this is very lighthearted, it's your story is all about, yeah, there's an issue, but we'll figure it out. You know, there's excitement. Let's do this together. There's other
Mhm.
comics that are much more uh, solemn, I would say.
Yeah.
A couple in there in particular. There's one with some night elves and a human around a campfire. I
Mhm.
haven't actually looked up. I'm sure I could find out the translation
Mhm.
of the Caldori speaking, but I haven't done that. But
Mhm.
you could, even without getting the translation, you can tell that it's much more solemn. It's more of a heartfelt, like
Mhm.
something they're processing
Yeah,
something.
some people were doing, like, folk songs either from,
Yeah.
real life. There's one person that has, like, a sea shanty in there, but then other people who are making up, new, folk songs, kind of just making their own, lore for that kinda thing, and then, yeah, mine was more of, uh, a more metaphorical take on harmony. Here's some characters that are gonna work together, and, they're still in a performing, setting, where they're on a stage putting a play together, so yeah, it was fun to do, and fun to, you know, I always like when I'm doing my comics, I try to set it up with like a beginning, a middle, and an end to like follow the course of the story. But some people, would rather do a more of a just kind of a scene or a motif or a moment for their comics. So both approaches totally valid. And if anyone out there is thinking, oh, what could my comic be for upcoming things, whatever you want to do, as long as you get me 4 pages at the end of the process, I'm not going to tell you your idea is bad.
Yeah, some
Mhm.
have very minimal, if any, dialogue or text.
Mhm.
Like some a little bit of set design, if you want to say so. Like this is what's going on, and then the rest is just the art, and it
Mhm.
speaks for itself.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. We had
yeah,
a great couple of those last year, with the cooking, food, the interlude. There's one that was just, this is how you prepare a meal, and there was no narration. You just saw like a Torin, like chopping up meat and then making like skewers, I think it was, and like barbecuing them. At the end, it's this gorgeous illustration. So yeah, always great to see, the breadth of approaches people take to the prompts and also the breadth of like, workcraftiness that they bring to the table. Like I love, there's someone who is always going to do like a Mechanom comic. There's someone who's always going to do a Forsaken comic. Like people have their genres that they want to work within, or like, their settings that they prefer. So um always great to kind of like bring them all into one book. Okay, so put it all together.
yeah, 100%. So you mentioned that Interlude has been historically and continues to be inspired by what's going on in the game, at least loosely, from rest with the time skip to feasting, now to harmony. So this is kind of off topic, but I just want to hear what your thoughts are on the Radiant song and the harmony from there. Where do you think we're going? Is it gonna stay radiant or is it gonna become a little bit more sinister?
Well, I guess we'll have to see what happens to Azeroth, because I think seeing the outline of kind of the trilogy that Metzen put together, we're definitely it's not going to be a happy time all the way through. I guess and midnight is going to be kind of things are going to go badly for us. So whether that's going to be if the void is going to get to Azeroth, that could be a completely different thing. Which, like, being a shadow priest, I'm kind of rooting for that. Like, yeah, let's make it all purple. Let's make it voidy. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
I'm
do
all
you
about
think?
that. Yeah, I'm also Shadow Priest main. And so every time Salatath does something that and it works out for Salatath, that's a great thing. I love
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
It's unfortunate that the dark heart is broken. I'm not a fan of that. Just give her the power, okay?
mhm. I've heard some crazy theories recently that maybe we're gonna have a raid inside the Dark Heart.
Oh wow.
Yeah, kinda like, how
Oh,
Khadgar, like, went into it, like, what if the
yeah,
raid
yeah,
is
yeah.
like, if that's what the ethereals are doing, I don't know.
That'd be wild. That would be
Mhm,
wild. And Khadgar was literally arcane energy in there, right? So
mhm.
yeah, let's all become arcane energy. Why not?
Sure, why not?
I do love that they're still, they since I feel like BFA, they've started doing more of the uh, character specific interactions. I don't know
Mhm,
if you noticed, but in leading up to that, when you were heading up, into the priory, you
mhm,
actually get a little whisper from Salatath if you're a
Mhm.
Shadow Priest?
That was the best because you also got a unique interaction if you still had the gift of N'Zoth, which I did. So, like,
Oh,
yeah, so that made me
wait.
super hyped.
I didn't know about the other secret interaction. What's one? I know there's a little
It's
whisper
like
about.
there's like a couple different layers of like what she'll tell you, and if you have like all of the criteria, like you get all of them. So I think that's
Oh,
like being a shadow priest, having Xalatath equipped, like the dagger equipped, and then having the gift of N'Zoth. So like I could check all of those boxes.
I don't understand why a Shadow Priest would have any other weapon transmogged except for Salatath. There's It's the only
The
acceptable
expansion for it.
transmog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I always love having these chats. I'm so glad this is the second time I get to talk to you about Interlude.
Mhm.
What does the future hold for Interlude? It sounds like you're already kind of thinking about the fall going forward. Tell me all about it.
No hard plans yet, because we're kind of coming off the typical cycle is, in the fall we, start the process, we get people to make their comics, and then that goes until about like November, December. That's when the book comes out, and then in January I'll have it printed, in February shipped off to people, and then that's kind of the whole interlude cycle. And past that point, I'm like, I gotta think about something else, which is fine. Kind of on and off the project. But as far as next time, I'm sure it's going to be something maybe housing related. Maybe people want to draw what their little characters' houses are going to be. Or we the way we decide is we put it to a vote in the Discord channel. So we don't want to pick something that people won't have good ideas for. So we kind of have to go by majority to make sure that everyone at least has some idea of like, okay, yeah, I can think of what comic I can make for this prompt. So um, nothing set yet.
It's exciting though. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of prospects with night. Oh my goodness, midnight coming up, and
Mhm.
then also yeah, housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very fun just to
Mhm.
see all different artists take on their wildest dreams, not just Elven Forest and Durotar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
leading up to that, until we hear more about the fourth take on Interlude,
Mhm.
what's up with Mego? What license store for Mego?
More Warcraft art. It's been a little bit since I've opened commissions just because I've been super busy with day job and freelance. But I always want to make sure I can get some character drawings in there for folks. I love when people come to me with their OCs and they say, okay, this is my orc, this is my night elf, this is my worgen. Can you draw them? And I'm always like, yes, yes, I can. So be on the lookout for that if that's something you're interested in. There's a wide community of artists who do this kind of art, so I'm happy to be among a lot of good peers. So I got to make sure I'm you know contributing my own aesthetic and style to all the artwork that is created kind of people's characters.
Yeah. So if someone wants to find you, either to hear more about Interlude or to in the future when you open commissions hire you, how can people find you on the internet?
I am on Blue Sky now, because that is a better place for me to be. And it's just MeggoArt at Blue Sky. How the Blue Sky handles are formatted. I think it's if you find it, I'm sure there'll be a link in the description.
There will be, yes. But search MeggoArt and I'm sure you'll come up. You have a Tide Sage as your profile picture, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's my. I was saying everyone has their little genre of what kind of Warcraft stuff they're most interested in. Mine is Tide Sages and Clerics and all that stuff.
that's great. Yes, we will have links to Mego in the description, links to Interlude, both to read for free and if you want to purchase the physical copy, that'll be down there as well. And if you want to find me, I'm EaseBRP on all of the social medias and Gaming with Ease on Twitch and YouTube. Until next time, Mego, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that we get to talk again soon.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been great. And happy to talk about the project. Happy to sing all the praises of all the artists that contribute to it. I'm ever so proud of them and always excited to see what they're gonna do next. So, I'm the biggest hype man of WoW comics, WoW art community.
You really are, and we love that. We love that.
Thank you.
So until next time, thanks for listening or watching, and take care.